Ferrari's 2026 engine meltdown, lead engineers leaving the sinking ship, and Helmut Marko taking another opportunity to give Christian Horner another dig in the ribs. This is F1 Grandstand. I'm Tony Craig, and if you are an F1 fan, you are in the right place. Hit the subscribe button and the bell button now. Join the community and get involved. So, let's get into it. Top story. Hello to everyone who's in the chat. Get in the chat and have your say. Comments welcome as I go through these stories. So lead story coming from Ben Evans. Okay. So Ferrari have been very secretive about their 2026 power unit ahead of the upcoming Formula One season. Now, Fred Vasseur is overseeing Ferrari's preparation for the biggest change in F1 regulations in the sport's 75-year history. Excuse me. A host of aerodynamic rule changes have been introduced, but one of the biggest talking points is, of course, the power unit. Now, there are going to be 5 power unit manufacturers on the grid next season: Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull Powertrains, Honda, and Audi. Ferrari are supplying power units to 2 other teams on the grid, Cadillac and Haas, and those guys are relying on the work Ferrari are doing right now behind the scenes. The problem is, we've had very little data on how the development of the Ferrari power unit is getting on, but the whispers are not good. Journalist Leo Torini announced the news that Wolf Zimmermann and Lars Schmidt will leave Ferrari's engine development department to join Audi. So Torini wrote that Zimmermann and Schmidt, engine designers with long-standing ties to Ferrari, are terminating their collaboration with Maranello just months after the introduction of the new power unit. We also know that as of mid-September, i.e. this month, Ferrari still hasn't tested their entire power unit on the bench. And there are 3 months to go until the homologation of the components. So what that actually means is they haven't taken the whole power unit and run it on a dyno, run it on a bench. It hasn't had a thorough test. It's not even been on the bench. And in 3 months' time, they have to submit all those parts for homologation. So alarm bells are going off. Hey Eric, hey Destroyed Television, hey James Allen, how you doing? James Allen in the chat, is it just me or does Fred Vasseur look like he should be on trial in Nuremberg? James, keep it polite. Fred, team principal at Ferrari, just got a deal, just got an extension. So here's the other thing. So they haven't put that Ferrari power unit on the bench yet, and they've tried to fill the gaps left by Zimmermann and Schmidt by recruiting engineers from Alpine's failed engine development program. So you know, Renault no longer have their engine development program. Well, those guys who failed, they've nicked some engineers from there to plug into Ferrari. So sorry, they haven't tested the power unit on the bench. And 2 of their lead engine designers have jumped ship to Audi. Now, when we start joining up the dots, all this points to a very worrying situation at Ferrari. I believe their engine is a complete bag of spanners. But what do you think? Not you, Fred. You in the chat. Great to have you all in there. So, yeah. It's looking pretty worrying. And also, when Ferrari are supplying 3 out of 11 teams in 2026, the pressure is pretty severe to produce a solid power unit. But here's what happens. If your 2 lead engineers choose to leave Ferrari at this point of the development process, this close to 2026, to jump ship to Audi, well, what are the reasons for that? Why? One thing I know about engineers is if you've developed an awesome power unit that is going to be competitive in 2026 and you're thinking all the signs are there to being a championship winning team, you would do that season. You would do that season in Ferrari, take all of the credit for building an engine which is absolutely amazing, and then you'd move. But yeah, they've already jumped ship to Audi, and for that to happen, I would say that the signs are that Red Bull power unit is not good. Not good at all. And the fact that they've not even had it on a working bench with all of the components is outrageous. Don't you think? Gemma says, what? So Gemma's saying she thinks, do you think the Ferrari engine's a bag of spanners, Gemma? Is that what you think? Is that your guess? Ferrari have got an engine that's a bag of spanners. But it is interesting though, isn't it, guys? Like, you know, if they're not gonna, if your lead engineers abandon the project to go to a new team. Now, if you don't know, I know a lot of the viewers who follow F1 do, but Audi are taking over Sauber next season. It's becoming the Audi team. And they obviously want to have great people. But the thing about this is, not only are Audi taking over Sauber, they're developing their own power unit. Audi are going to have their own power unit in that F1 car. Whereas Ferrari obviously will have their own power unit, but Ferrari are supplying Haas with their power unit, along with a load of other things out the parts bin. Haas basically, they're if you didn't know, Haas, they've got a workshop literally next at Ferrari, and they are almost like a bolt-on. Whatever the rules allow, they take every part they can from Ferrari. And I think the only things that Haas do is design the chassis and a little bit of aero. They take Ferrari's suspension, they take Ferrari's gearbox, they take Ferrari's engine. The Haas really is 90% Ferrari. But yeah, so Ferrari is supplying Haas with their power unit, and of course they're supplying newcomers Cadillac with their power unit. But if the main designers of that 2026 power unit have jumped ship, what does that tell you? So Destroy Television, I'm going to go to you in the chat. This may be a stupid question. I'm still rather new to F1. If Cadillac got cold feet on Ferrari's power unit, could they jump ship to another engine manufacturer this late? Unfortunately not. They have signed, it's a minimum 3 years. They've signed a 3-year supply deal with Ferrari. But you are right. Cadillac's goal is to have their own power unit. The problem is these new power units are so... This season's power units with the kinetic, where the kinetic regeneration system, where they cleverly take exhaust gases and turn it back into energy into the battery. I mean, very complicated, very expensive, and they tried to make it less expensive for next year by going to regenerative braking to recharge the battery power. To make it less complicated. But if you watch my video from earlier today, I had some great news that it looks like we're going to go back to V8s, naturally aspirated, which is great news, simplifying even more, which is good news for Cadillac because obviously GM know how to build a V8. So we're in this weird era of electrification in F1, which I think is not going to last. I think we've got it now with a 15% electrification. Next season, we've got a 50-50 split between internal combustion engine and electrification. But beyond that, by all accounts, if you watch my earlier video where it says V8s are back, watch that video. I'll go into it in detail about what's coming. Toto Wolff let it slip. It's quite interesting. It's only 4 or 5 minutes long. Have a watch of that after this show. So yeah, the writing seems to be on the wall at the moment. Hey, Yvonne. Yeah, Yvonne's in the chat saying it's time for Lewis to retire. I think Lewis will retire if this power unit is as bad as I think it's going to be. As soon as you lose your lead designers and your lead engineers, and you haven't even had... I can tell you right now, Mercedes have had their power unit on a bench, and it's probably they've been working on it for however many years. The Mercedes power unit will be in good shape, but for the Ferrari power unit to lose your two lead engineers to Audi this late in the game, and to have no data on that power unit, and for them to let slip that power unit has not even been on a bench or on a dyno. Wow, it's big news. It's big news. It tells us a lot. It tells us everything we need to know about where Ferrari's up to with the development of that 2026 power unit. And is Fred Vasseur out of his depth? Because when we see how we're seeing engineers becoming team principals, I'm not saying it's not always been like that. I mean, you could argue Frank Williams was an engineer, but he was also a racer and he was a man manager. But in the days of Ron Dennis, he was a man manager. Christian Horner, man manager. Toto Wolff, man manager. Flavio Briatore, man manager. Like, they are still obviously all the way through Formula 1, but now we're seeing this sort of shift towards, you know, you got Vols, you got Mekis, all engineers. Wheatley, engineer, as leading these F1 teams. And I think that makes a difference to how quickly cars can develop. I think having those sorts of people in charge. Now, Fred Vasseur is a man manager. He's not an engineer. He's Ferrari's guy as a man manager, as a team manager, managing the people. He's a people manager, but he's not an engineer. But you could argue that if he's a good people manager, he'll have chosen good engineers to work around him. So if he's done that and he chose good engineers, yet those good engineers are now left to go to Audi, well, what does that tell us? What does it tell us? It tells us that Ferrari power unit is in trouble. Oh, yeah. Eric says that Laura Mekis had an interesting interview with Jim Farley from Ford a few days ago. He did. Because the Red Bull powertrain being developed with Ford is a fascinating project, isn't it? Red Bull have never built a power unit, but they do know how to build an F1 car. Ford, I can't remember the last time Ford were in F1 actually, but they have been in F1 before. Cosworth have absolutely been in F1. So I think that with all the might of Ford and the kind of aggressive need to win from Red Bull, they could produce a good engine. But I still think it's a gamble. I'm erring on the side that they're not going to produce a good power unit, actually. I'll tell you who I like best for power units next season. Honda, who are supplying Aston Martin exclusively with their power unit next season. I will bet my bottom dollar that is a great engine. And Mercedes-Benz. Because if you look at what Mercedes did, was it 2014 when they went to the V8s and they dominated with Lewis for all those years, you know, they just can produce great engines, can't they? So if I was to bet, I would say Mercedes are going to have a solid engine. And Mercedes are supplying 4 teams on the grid. Mercedes are supplying themselves, obviously. They've got Alpine, they've got Williams, and they've got the McLaren. Now, McLaren, you know, they're running their aero, obviously, and their car design. But they know how to integrate a good power unit. So McLaren, I'm expecting to be a pretty solid team next year. It doesn't mean they're going to be the top. It doesn't mean they're going to come out the same they've been this season. But there are some development pieces which do sort of pass over to the 2026 cars. Certainly some of the suspension parts. Aero's a bit different, obviously. Ground Force era is done, but they will be learning a lot from they'll be still doing some development on cars now which directly impact the 2026 car. Oh God, excuse me. I'm full of a cold, guys. I'm full of a cold. I've got my hot mug of tea, but I am full of a cold. But yeah, so tell me what you think about what you think about the rats leaving the Ferrari ship and going to Audi. Do you have this? Yeah, it is man flu, Gemma. It is. Do you have the same thought that I do, that all is not well with that Ferrari power unit? What do you think? I think. So yeah. So James is saying, you're all chatting between yourselves. Oh, I think so. Eric says, I think Cadillac will make it for the V8. I think you're right. Cadillac will make engines for when it went for the V8s in 2030 for sure. 2031, 100%. I'm just hoping though that this electrification era, that they do cut it short. There was talk of these new regulations, which normally have a 5-year cycle, but there was talk of it being a 3-year cycle. But the teams are pushing back, because that means literally they'll have to start developing the V8s in a year's time. And the cost of it is just... Well, actually, the cost of developing a V8 naturally aspirated is far less than the V6 hybrid bollocks that they've got now. 100% it's cheaper. But Cadillac might be sensible and wait until that regulation change, rather than produce their own hybrid. It might be sensible. But I thought that Cadillac were actually hoping to have their own power unit by 2030. So, 3 years. So 2029. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, at that point, you may as well wait for your V8, to be honest. They may change their mind. Yeah, they may change their mind. Oh, and James Allen says, you picked up on the engineers running the, becoming team principals. Shouldn't engineers or drivers engineers be running F1 teams, Tony? Okay, here's my thought on this, because do I think engineers should be the first choice for team principals within F1? Let me think about that, because honestly, let's think of the great man managers and successful racing teams. Frank Williams, he was an engineer, but I'd say he was a racer and a man manager first. Ron Dennis, great man manager, won a lot of world championships. Obviously, Christian Horner, you can't ignore him. Exceptionally successful man manager. So which great engineers? But then again, Christian Horner's a good example, because he had great engineers around him. When we think about, even going back to Frank Williams in the 90s, he had Adrian Newey, car designer, engineer, building the car. And who did Christian Horner have at Red Bull? Adrian Newey. Wasn't a team principal, but he was working for the team principal, with the team principal, designing the car. Load of success. So it's like anything, James. I think if you're a man manager who can attract the best talent to work with you, then you don't need to be an engineer to run a team. But is it beneficial to have that vocabulary with your engineering team to develop a car? It probably is. But they still would need to have that ruthless man management ability to motivate. Because what was it that Steve Jobs said when at Apple? He said, I don't play an instrument. I play the orchestra. And I think that makes sense. You've got your specialists in each department in the orchestra. And if you can play the orchestra, like Steve Jobs said, you can build a massive company like Apple, and you can build a racing team like Christian Horner did at Red Bull. So for me, I think you can have successful teams with both. But if I was a man manager or a team principal, I would like to have a solid... I would try and learn as quickly as I could, as much on the technical side as possible. So at least I can have an understanding with my engineers. And you got to remember, Red Bull right now with Laurent Mekies, at this point, their engineering's gone off the charts. They're engineering their own power unit for the first time. So It's probably a good thing. Yeah, Yvonne says someone needs to give him some chicken soup. I do need some chicken soup. Honestly, this man flu is horrendous, absolutely horrendous. All I've got is a cup of Earl Grey in one of my favourite mugs. But yeah, so that's what I think, James. To that, I think you can have a successful team without being an engineer, but it's interesting to see. There's some engineers that I really like who have taken over. Like I like Vols at Williams. I think he's done a great job as well. Laurent Mekies got his first win, obviously, didn't he, in Italy? Will he have an impact? Will he have an impact on that engine development? Because I would have thought most of that was done under Horner. So I'm not sure how much influence he's going to have at this late stage before the 2020 season, but we'll see. We'll see. And actually brings me on to Red Bull. I'm glad we're talking about it. Also, before I get on to the next story, which is a good one, Eric says, yes and no, they can help make excellent technical decisions, but there is a huge political side to F1 as well. Exactly, Eric, that's true. Managing the politics, the sponsors, the press commitments, all of that stuff, it's a different animal to sort of like a techie person. So if you can get the mix of the two, then I think you're on to a winner. And Destroy Television says, as an engineer in Lightning, I can't manage people for shit. Yeah, all right, Destroy, I get it. It's true. But I bet you can build an amazing lighting rig, right? So yeah, I understand what you're saying. Right, next story. That'll run and run. But we'll just wrap that up by saying that yeah, Ferrari look like they're in big trouble with this power unit. All the evidence is there. Lead engineers gone over to Audi. They let slip they've not even had the engine on a bench. So how can they even know how good it is? And they've got 3 months to submit all their components. It's crazy. But we will get on to the next story. And this one. So Helmut Marko digging Christian Horner again in the ribs today. So after Red Bull sacked Christian Horner and installed Laurent Mekies as a new team principal, Helmut Marko claims putting an engineer in the driving seat was the right decision. Red Bull F1 team announced after the British Grand Prix that long-serving F1 team principal Horner had been sacked with immediate effect. Now, we have to remember Horner led Red Bull Racing to 8 drivers' titles and 7 constructors' titles. I mean, credit where it's due. That's impressive. But after the Monza Grand Prix, Marko, the Dark Lord, was waxing lyrical. And he shone a spotlight on the difference between Horner and the former race car, for Horner, the former race car driver, and Mekies, the engineer. And I know we've been talking about this. So it's quite interesting. So Marko said, I think that it was the right decision to sack Horner. In the complexity of Formula One, a technician at the top is probably the better solution. Everything is then built more from the technical side. So if you're somebody who thinks technical people, engineers are the better choice to be team principal, you agree with this guy, the Dark Lord himself, Helmut Marko. But I just think it was another chance for Helmut Marko to dig Horner in the ribs a little bit more. So yeah, it's... Oh, so Yvonne's in the chat saying, but Horner been at Red Bull for 2 decades. Yeah, he was. And Horner made sure that Marko was fed. Do you know what? You're right about that. Because when you think about it, I'm going to touch on the thing that I found absolutely, and I still find fascinating. So Christian Horner didn't have any shares in the Red Bull racing team. He had no ownership at all. But he was a director of Red Bull Racing. He was a director of Red Bull Powertrains and Red Bull Technologies, which were 3 sort of special purpose vehicle companies, which all led into the racing team. And the other director of those 3 companies, Helmut Marko. And here's where it gets interesting. Red Bull Racing only had the two directors, Helmut Marko and Christian Horner. And when Christian Horner was sacked and agreed his termination payout, which we believe was about 100 million, they removed Horner as a director, obviously, from all of those companies. But when they replaced Horner with Laurent Mekies has not been made a director of any of those companies. And the only person who is a director of Red Bull Racing is Helmut Marko. He's the sole director of Red Bull Racing. So it was obviously in Helmut Marko's best interest that Christian Horner got sacked and removed as the director, because now he has all the control of Red Bull Racing. And like I said, they brought Laurent Mekies in, who is a technician or an engineer, but they haven't given him a directorship of Red Bull Racing, have they? They put him in position with less responsibility and less control and less power, and given him more control and more power. So, and he's still out there digging Horner in the ribs. I mean, we've got to think that the man that was really behind the downfall of Horner at Red Bull was Helmut Marko. And he's taken another chance to have a little swipe at him. But Helmut Marko, like Yvonne said, benefited from the success that Horner brought to the team. Now, the thing is, Horner was team principal, so he gets a lot of the credit. But we've got to remember, the best move Horner ever made, it wasn't Sebastian Vettel, it wasn't Max Verstappen. The best signing Horner ever made was Adrian Newey. He brought in Adrian Newey, the most decorated man in Formula One's history. 13 Drivers' Championships, 13 Constructors' Championships. The guy is the GOAT, the greatest of all time in Formula One history. And that's what Horner did that really helped him get his success. But anyway, yeah, Helmut Marko taking the opportunity publicly to dig Horner in the ribs again and say what a great decision it was to get him, to sack him and to replace him with Laurent Mekies. It was a great decision, apparently. Well, Laurent Mekies has had one win under his belt at a circuit where you'd fancy that Red Bull car to do quite well. So, yeah, I mean, it's still to be seen. We can't really judge Laurent Mekies until we see the 2026 car that he puts on the grid. That's what I think. We don't know. He's got a few, 7 races left to see if there's any more wins. Helmut Marko also went on to say, by the way, in the news today, he expects Verstappen to win a couple more races this year. He expects Red Bull to be competitive for the last part of the season. What do you think? Do you think he's right? Do you think that win in Italy will be enough to really spark Red Bull's competitiveness till the end of the season? What do you think? Get in the chat. But yeah, so Eric says, didn't Mercedes engineers just leave for Red Bull also? I don't know. Have Red Bull been pinching some Mercedes technicians? I know that Cadillac have got a fair few of the Alpine technicians. They raided that team, and they also Cadillac have got a fair few Red Bull technicians from, I think, the aero department. So Cadillac obviously been a new team on the grid. They are literally stealing staff, excuse me, from as many teams as they can. But Alpine have been they've been recruiting from Alpine and they've been recruiting from Red Bull. Because believe it or not, when Horner was sacked, there was quite a few people in the team that were very unhappy and were very close to Christian Horner. So Cadillac, being the new kids on the block, thought, oh, this is not a bad chance to swoop in and maybe take out some of those team players and bring them over to Cadillac. And that's what they've been doing. And do you know what they offered them? Apparently, Cadillac, they've got plenty of money because they were doubling people's salaries to get them over to Cadillac. Doubling their salaries. Not bad, is it? Disgruntled Red Bull technician, double your salary, son. Come and join the Cadillac team. Terrible accent again. Oh my god, I should probably stop doing them. That was my Cadillac team accent. But yeah, that's what they're doing, offering double salaries to get people in. And I think if you're a new team in F1, you probably need to do that. But Audi, God knows what they had to pay lead power unit engineers from Ferrari. They must have to pay them a fortune. So Yvonne says, I agree with Marco. So Yvonne, you're saying you agree with Marco? You think we're going to see an uptick in Red Bull's performance towards the end of the season? We're going to see Max maybe winning another 1 or 2 Grand Prix. Maybe in Azerbaijan this weekend. I do love it. I like Azerbaijan, actually. I'm looking forward to this weekend. It's a good track. Yeah, it's good. Destroy Television says, I'm excited for Cadillac and seeing Bottas and Perez back out there. Me too. I can't wait to see Cadillac on the grid. And the most exciting thing for me is, I want to know, you know, when Bottas does his first, like, walk out into the pits, I want to know what's his hairdo going to be like? Is he going to sport is he going to grow his mullet out? I mean, he's going to do something wild, isn't he? Is he going to have this wild, curly, like, Colonel Sanders moustache and goat beard? Like, Bottas is going to come out with some crazy stuff, and he's going to be hilarious. He's going to look so American, is my guess. He's probably going to come out in cowboy boots, big, like, Stetson hat, big curly moustache. I hope so. And a great big mullet. I honestly, yeah, Destroy, yeah, mullet man. It's so American. I'm here for it. Me too. I'm totally here for it. I want him to. I want him to be more. He may be smoking a pack of Marlboros. Do you know what I mean? Like wandering around with his Marlboro Reds. I don't know. I'm here for it. Whatever he does, you know. Maybe he's got like a, I don't know, carrying like a bullwhip or something, like a cowboy. I don't know, but. I'm here for it. I'm here for the Bottas show with Cadillac. It's going to be so good. The only thing is, though, I think Cadillac's power unit might not be that great if Ferrari haven't got it together already. Now, I mean, there's obviously problems. Yeah, Detroit eating a big cheeseburger as he's wandering down. I'm here for it. I can see it. I want it to be that way. So yeah, quick recap if you're just joining us. We've been talking about the trouble over at Ferrari, and that there's evidence that their power unit for 2026 is not in great shape. They've lost their lead engineer and the number 2 engineer to Audi. They have walked out, left the Ferrari team high and dry, and they have let slip that Ferrari power unit has not even been tested on a bench yet, and in 3 months' time they have to list all their components and submit them to the FIA. It's not good. It is not good. So if you just joined us, the Ferrari power unit looks like it is in absolute chaos. On the other hand, Audi are quite pleased. They've got a couple of great engineers over in the Audi team. But you don't lose your lead engineers for your brand new power unit this late in the game before you're going to race in 2026. You know, the power unit isn't... There's obviously major problems. They have not got it on a bench for testing. Though no one knows if it's any good, which means it probably isn't any good. So yeah, that's going to be a big knock-on effect, obviously, to the other teams that are supplying Cadillac and Haas. I don't know how they're going to sort it out. I honestly don't know how they're going to sort it out. But that's your news if you just joined us. Thank you so much for tuning in. And the other news is Helmut Marko taking swipes at Christian Horner again today, saying it was a right move to put an engineer in charge of Red Bull, obviously with Laurent Mekies. And he also said that he thinks that Red Bull are going to be competitive in a couple of races before the end of the season. Now, I will give Helmut Marko some credit, the Dark Lord, because earlier on, Max Verstappen was saying, we're not going to win any more races this season. It was quite negative. The Ferraris, the Red Bull's no good. And then Helmut Marko came out in the press and said, that's not true, Max. Basically, we are going to be competitive toward the end of the season. We will see some race wins. He didn't agree with Max's assessment. And then they did get a win and a pole position and a win. Sorry, pole position and a win in Italy. And he's saying they might get another couple of wins for the end of the season. So to be fair to Helmut, he did say it. And even though Max was moaning, and that was when all of the Max, it was all the time Max was going off with Toto Wolff on Toto's yacht. And he was being very negative about the Red Bull team. Helmut did say they're going to get a win, and they have done. And he said they'll get other wins. So credit where it's due to the Dark Lord himself. Yeah, James Allen, I'm with Destroy TV on this. Double cheeseburger and a Ferrari V8, just tick it. Yeah, I'm here for it. Go on, Bottas. I can't wait for 2026. But yeah, that's basically what's been going on in Action News. And if you have just joined us, you can always rewind it from the beginning. It's been a good show tonight. Everyone's getting involved. I love it. Everyone's getting in the chat. James Allen, very funny. But yeah, it's going to be a crazy time, this, because the new regulations, it's such an open playing field. You know, you got Mercedes supplying 4 teams on the grid, Ferrari supplying 3 teams on the grid, Audi with Audi's powertrain. Obviously, you've got Red Bull with their unique powertrain, Red Bull Ford powertrain. Racing Bulls have got that powertrain as well, obviously. And then you've got Honda supplying Aston Martin. So it's the engine. The engine wars are going on right now. It is all happening right now. But no other team though. This is what's interesting about why it's so telling that Ferrari have lost their lead engineers for their power units this late, is because no other engine lead designers have left their teams. You know, they haven't. And believe me, I'm sure Cadillac or Audi have been trying to poach other people. I mean, even between Mercedes and Ferrari, but you don't see that. It's only Ferrari's lead engineers that have gone, and excuse me. And when you look at that, it's a telling story. I'm not sure that Fred Vasseur has got a handle on it. I'm really not. I'm not sure that. If I'm really honest, I'm not sure Fred Vasseur is the right man to lead that team. And he's just signed, obviously, an extension to his deal. But if you're losing your top people at a time when we're going to a brand new era of Formula One, and you are losing your lead engineers to Audi, people don't jump ship unless there's a problem. It's not always about money, because if the Ferrari power unit was looking like an absolute killer unit, and that package was looking awesome, absolutely awesome for 2026, no lead engineer is going to leave and not take the credit for that power unit, because one season with Ferrari, if they're winning everything and their power unit's next level and you're the engineer that designed it, can you imagine what your market value is after that year? But let's reverse that. You're getting credited with designing a power unit as a lead engineer that's a total bag of spanners because of internal politics, and they're not doing what you want them to do. And you know it's going to be crap, and you do not want to be associated with it. What do you do? Yeah, you jump ship. You do not want your name associated with it. You don't want the credit. You jump ship. And that's what's gone on. That's why it's so important. Sema, 6 a.m. just stepped in. We'll watch the replay. Holla. Hey, Sema. Yeah, you're going to have to get on that. We're nearly at the end. We're nearly at the end. But you can watch it on replay. But thank you so much for jumping in the chat. Love seeing you there, Sema. Love seeing you there. But yeah, but that's the thing. It's logic, isn't it? If my name's lead designer of Ferrari Power Unit, and I know it's going to be great, and we're going to a new era of regulations where I'm going to show off how great my power unit is and Ferrari dominate, and I get all the credit, my market value as a lead engineer goes through the roof. Through the roof. But if it's not good, and I know it's not good, and I'm thinking, oh my God, like this, they're not doing what I asked them to do. I'm trying to design an engine which we haven't even had it on the bench, and it's mid-September. We've got 3 months to submit our list of components, and they can't do it. Then yeah, I'm damn right I'm going to jump ship. I do not want my name associated with that disaster. If I've left before it happens, no blame on me. I have said I had to leave that absolute chaos. I had to leave. So that's why when you put all these puzzle pieces together, I think it's pretty fair to say that Ferrari power unit is in dire freaking straits. So yeah, that is today's news. Lots going on. If you just joined us late, don't worry, you can still have your say. You can get in the chat. If you're watching on replay, get in the chat. I will do my best to answer all of the messages and all the comments. And if you joined in late, absolutely rewind it. Go back to the beginning. It's been a fun one tonight. And a big thank you, as always, to everyone who's been in the chat. James, Sema, Gemma, rhyming, Destroy Television, Yvonne, Eric. You've all been in there providing lots of good fun. And thank you so much for that. So yeah, sorry for my constant coughing and spluttering. I will try and get the Lemsits down me for tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching F1 Grandstand. Please like, comment, join the community, subscribe and hit the bell button so you can keep up to date. It really makes a massive difference to the success of the channel. And I'm so grateful to all of you. I will see you tomorrow, and I'm going to try and get a hot water bottle, a hot toddy and an early night. All right, ta-ta.